Welcome to Biography Central. You are listening to Life of Sri Ramakrishna, a complete biography. Chapter 44, Girish Chandra Ghosh. The name of Girish Chandra Ghosh is a household word in Bengal as the greatest dramatist in the Bengali language and the father of the Bengali stage. He was a very dissipated man, due in part to the social conditions of his time. He was one of the first of the cultured people in Bengal to feel the impact of Western education with its strong materialistic bias. Everything that was Western was accepted without question simply because it was Western and new. Unfortunately, it was easier for some to imitate the vices of the West, such as drinking, than its virtues. There were others who lost all reverence for the old Hinduism and became Christians or Brahmos. The situation among the Orthodox Hindus was no better because of their differences of opinion. The priests, the custodians of the ancient spiritual culture, had become degenerated and hypocritical. These conflicting conditions produced great confusion in Girish's mind. His faith in the old was gone, and being dissatisfied with the new, he plunged himself into all sorts of dissipations in order to stifle the question that was always in his mind. Does God exist? And if he does, how can I attain him? The necessities for the physical life are present in abundance everywhere, he would say to himself. Why, then must one labor to acquire the necessities for the spiritual life? Why shouldn't they too be right at hand? The whole thing is a fraud. The materialists are wiser. Their view is right because at least they get some fun out of life. For 14 years, he tried to live up to this conclusion. Then came a series of reverses which upset him. He was frantic in his efforts to find some way out of his difficulties. He bethought himself of taking refuge with the Lord Shiva of Tarakeswar, to whom the afflicted go for the cure of disease. I also am hopelessly beset with dangers, he thought. Can he not help me? Let me try. He tried to surrender himself to the Lord. The attempt was successful. The dangers passed quickly. Girish was convinced that God was real. He was free from danger, but what about the other world? He was in grave doubt as to which path to follow. He said to himself, I have experienced the glories of Taraknath. Let me call on him. Gradually his faith in the deities returned. But people say, he again thought, it is the Guru who shows the way. Well, can I not find the way through the Lord's name? But everyone says that the Guru is indispensable. Well, whom should I accept as such? And if, as it is said, the Guru should be regarded as God himself, how can I think of a man like myself as God? He again became restless. He could never bow to a human guru. Then he said to himself, never mind. I won't look for a guru, but I can pray to Taraknath that in case I need one, he may graciously act in that capacity for me. I shall take his name once every morning and wait for further developments. One day, Girish read in the Indian Mirror that a Paramahamsa lived at Dakshineshwar and that Keshab Chandra Sen with his disciples paid frequent visits to him. Girish, seeing that the Brahmos had taken to saying Hari or Mother, thought they might set up a Paramahamsa as well, far as he might be from the true Paramahamsas of ancient times. Shortly after he heard that the Paramahamsa was visiting a neighbor. Out of curiosity, he went to see him. It was evening, and the lamps were lit. But Sri Ramakrishna, who was then in a semi-conscious state, did not see the light. He inquired if it was evening. Girish thought this the height of absurdity and left in disgust. Some years after this, Sri Ramakrishna paid a visit to the house of Balaram Bose. Girish was invited also. He found the room crowded. He was agreeably surprised at the conduct of Sri Ramakrishna. He was under the impression that Paramahamsas and yogis never spoke, never bowed to anyone, but if hard-pressed, condescended to accept some little personal service. But this Paramahamsa behaved quite differently. Girish sat for a few minutes when Babu Sisir Kumar Ghosh, editor of the Amrita Bazar Patrika, who did not seem to have much respect for Sri Ramakrishna, entered the room and said to Girish, well, let us go. We have had enough of this. Girish wanted to stay, but had to comply with his friend's request. This was his second visit. Some days passed. The Chaitanya Leela was being played at the Star Theater, then on Bidon Street. Girish was pacing the courtyard of the theater when a devotee of Sri Ramakrishna came to him and said, "Paramahansadeva has come to see the play. Will you kindly give him a seat, or shall we purchase a ticket?" "He will be admitted free," replied Girish, "but others will have to pay." He was about to advance and receive the master when he found that he was already within the compound. Sri Ramakrishna saluted Girish. Girish returned the salute, but the master bowed again. This was repeated again. Girish stopped short, lest the salutations go on forever. He conducted the master to a box, engaged a servant to fan him, and feeling indisposed, went home. This was his third meeting with the master. About this time, he met a Vaishnava painter who told him that every day he offered food to his chosen deity, who actually partook of it. But, he added, none could experience such divine favor without the grace of a guru. The statement, whether true or false, profoundly impressed Girish. He shut himself in his room and wept bitterly. 3 days after the above incident, Girish saw Sri Ramakrishna accompanied by 2 or 3 devotees walking slowly past his house. As soon as he saw Girish, the master saluted him. Girish returned the salute, and the master went on his way. Girish felt himself so much drawn to him that he longed to run and overtake him. Just then came a message from the master, asking Girish to come to see him. Girish followed the messenger to Balaram's house, arriving just after the master. Girish asked him, "Who is a guru?" "He is an intermediary," replied the master. "He brings about the meeting of the devotee with God." Then he added, "You have your guru. What is a mantra?" Again asked Girish. God's name was the answer. He illustrated it by a reference to Kabir, who wanted to make Ramananda his guru. But the monk for some reason refused to initiate him. Ramananda used to bathe very early in the Ganges. One day, Kabir lay on the steps of the bathing ghat. In the dark, Ramananda's feet touched the prostrate body of Kabir. The monk at once took the name Rama, for he looked upon every creature as the manifestation of the Lord. Kabir accepted that word as his mantra and attained perfection by repeating it. The conversation drifted to theaters, and Sri Ramakrishna said, "Let me visit your theater again." Girish, "Very well, you may come any day." Sri Ramakrishna, "But please accept some fee." Girish, "All right, you may pay 8 annas." Sri Ramakrishna, "But that will not purchase a good seat." Girish, "You may occupy a box, as on the previous occasion." Sri Ramakrishna, "Well, you must take 1 rupee." Girish agreed, and there the matter was settled. Balaram had some sweets served to the master, who took a little, and the rest was distributed among the devotees. Girish wanted some, but dared not lest someone should criticize him. Shortly after, he saluted the master and left with a devotee. The latter asked Girish, "How did you find him?" "A great devotee," answered Girish. He was full of joy. There was no despondency now over not having a guru. He said to himself, "It is fools who say that we must have a guru. Hasn't the Paramahansa just said that I have my guru? I am not going to listen to anybody else." It was arrogance that made Girish refuse to accept a guru. He considered it bondage to owe allegiance to a mere man. But this haughtiness gave way before the magic influence of Sri Ramakrishna, for it was he who had done the bowing, not Girish. Before this utter absence of egoism, the proud head of Girish bent of itself. Another day, sometime after his last meeting with the master, Girish was seated in the green room of his theater when a devotee, Devendranath Mazumdar, came to him in haste and said that Sri Ramakrishna had come to see the play. "Very well," replied Girish. "Please conduct him to a box." "But won't you come and receive him?" he asked. "Why?" said Girish. "Can't he get down from the coach without me?" But he went nevertheless, and found Sri Ramakrishna just about to alight. As he looked upon his serene countenance, Girish was smitten with remorse to think that he had not been more cordial in welcoming the saint. He took the master upstairs, touched his feet without knowing why he did so, and presented him with a rose. The master returned it, saying, "Flowers are for gods or for fashionable folk. I am neither." Girish conducted the master and the devotees to a special room. Sri Ramakrishna sat on a chair and Girish on another. There were other chairs in the room, which Girish repeatedly asked the devotees to take, but they preferred to stand. Referring to this incident later, Girish said, "I was too stupid to know that disciples should not sit on the same level with the guru." The master said to him, "There is crookedness in your mind." Girish knew that he had many failings, but he did not know which one was meant. He asked, "How can I get rid of it?" "Have faith," was the reply. Some days elapsed. One afternoon, at his theater, Girish received a note saying that Sri Ramakrishna was to visit Ramchandra Dutt that evening. Immediately, he felt a great longing to see the master, but hesitated because he had not been invited. The strange attraction, however, drew him on. He stopped several times on the way, but at length reached his destination. It was evening. Sri Ramakrishna was dancing and singing with his devotees. Tears stood in Girish's eyes at the sight of such fervor and enthusiasm. In the course of the dance, the master plunged into samadhi, and the devotees began to take the dust of his feet. Girish would have liked to have done this as well, but false pride checked him. He was not going to leave himself open to ridicule. Curiously enough, the moment such thoughts crossed his mind, the master came out of his samadhi and, dancing towards Girish, fell into samadhi again before him. After the singing was over, Sri Ramakrishna went into the parlor, where Girish followed him. Girish asked, "Sir, will the crookedness of my mind ever be removed?" "Yes," replied Sri Ramakrishna. Thrice the question was repeated, and thrice the master gave the same answer. Among the audience was Manomohan Mithra, who said, "You have been answered. Why be so troublesome?" Pocketing this affront, Girish thought, he is right. If a man cannot take another's word the first time, 100 repetitions will not make him do so. He saluted the master and returned to his theater. Some days after the above incident, Girish went to Dakshineshwar and found Sri Ramakrishna seated on a blanket on the southern veranda of his room, talking with Bhavanath. Girish silently repeated the mantra, "Guru is Brahma," etc., and saluted the master. Sri Ramakrishna asked him to be seated and said, "Would you believe me? I was just speaking of you. You may ask him," pointing to Bhavanath. Then he proceeded to instruct him. Girish interrupted, "I don't want to listen to instructions. I myself have written many such. It is of no use. Please help me in a more tangible way if you can." This pleased the master, who asked Ramlal to repeat a particular Sanskrit verse, the purport of which was that even if he dwell in solitude or a mountain cave, a man without faith can achieve nothing. Girish felt pure for the time being. Who might this man be, he thought, who could make his proud head bow before him in veneration? Who was this remarkable personality, at whose feet he had taken shelter and lost all fear? He asked eagerly, "Who are you, sir?" The master replied, "Some say that I am Ramprasad, others that I am Raja Ramakrishna. I live here." Girish bowed and rose to take leave. As the master walked with him to the northern veranda, Girish asked, "Sir, now that I have seen you, shall I continue to do as I am doing?" "Why, yes," replied Sri Ramakrishna. Girish felt from this that his connection with the theater was not harmful. Already, he was beginning to glimpse what a guru really meant. Girish became a steadfast devotee of Sri Ramakrishna. The master used to speak highly of his faith, which changed his evil propensities into noble attributes. Wonderful was his relationship with the master. Shortcomings which would never be tolerated in others were patiently borne within Girish. The master knew that at heart Girish was tender, faithful, and sincere. One of the vices of Girish was his excessive habit of drinking alcohol. One day, under its influence, he abused Sri Ramakrishna in the theater, mortifying his devotees. The reason of the outburst was this: he desired to come into closer relationship with the master, to have the master become to him as a son. He thought that by doing so, he might develop the devotional element which he felt to be lacking in his nature. But Sri Ramakrishna would not listen. He said spiritedly, "Why should I be your son? My father was a pure and pious man. I shall be your guru, your ishta." This made Girish talk nonsense in an inebriated state. Shortly after, when Ramachandra went to Dakshineshwar, the master said to him, Girish has abused me for nothing. Ram, you'll have to bear with it. Sri Ramakrishna, but if he should beat me sometime? Ram, you'll have to put up with that as well. He can only give what he has. What could the snake offer to Krishna but its venom? So it is with Girish. Who but you would tolerate such treatment? Sri Ramakrishna was visibly moved. Give me a coach, said he. I shall go and see Girish immediately. He did not listen to the objections of the devotees, nor did he mind the noonday sun. When he reached the house of Girish, he found him smitten with anguish and remorse. The master's kind and affectionate words banished his gloom. The evening was spent in song and dance, and Girish made a long stride towards complete self-surrender at the master's feet. One day, a devotee complained to Sri Ramakrishna about the intemperance of Girish and begged him to advise him to give up liquor. Sri Ramakrishna sternly replied, "Why do you trouble your head about him? He who has taken charge of him will look after him." Girish is a devotee of the heroic type. I tell you, drinking will not affect him. The master knew that mere words could not induce a man to break deep-rooted habits, but the silent influence of his love worked miracles. Girish tried his best to conquer his love of drink, and succeeded to a certain extent. One day, however, he went to see an actress who was ill and drank so much that he had to spend the night at her house. It was the first time he had ever slept in such a place. In the morning, when he had sobered up, he understood what had happened, and stung with remorse, started directly for Dakshineshwar, not however without a flask of wine. Dismounting from the coach, he ran to the master and clasping his feet, began to weep. In the meantime, Sri Ramakrishna told a devotee to take Girish's shoes, scarf, and flask from the coach. When Girish became calmer, he felt a desire for a drink, and was much disturbed when he found that the carriage in which he had left the flask was gone. But the master produced the flask, and Girish drank before all. When he realized what he had done, he was much ashamed. Sri Ramakrishna only said, "All right, enjoy yourself to your fill, it won't be for long." He knew that Girish would soon be purged of all dross. After this incident, the latter seldom touched liquor. One day in the course of conversation, Sri Ramakrishna said to Girish that along with his work, he must remember God at least in the morning and evening. He looked at Girish as if expecting a reply. That is a very simple thing to do, Girish thought, but I am a busy man with no fixed hours for food or sleep. I shall surely forget to remember God at those stated hours. So how can I promise that? Sri Ramakrishna read his mind and said, "All right, if you cannot do that, remember God before meals and at bedtime." Girish was not willing to promise even that. Such was the irregularity of his life. And besides, he was by nature opposed to any hard and fast rule. The slightest restraint was galling to him. Sri Ramakrishna realized his perplexity and said finally, "So you are unwilling to agree to this even? All right, give me your power of attorney. Henceforth I assume responsibility for you. You need not do anything." The master was in one of his exalted moods when he said these words. Girish heaved a sigh of relief. Now, he had just what he had wanted. He was overwhelmed by the infinite love and compassion of the master, which freed him from the tasks of atoning for his past sins and preparing for a future life. He said to himself, now I am saved. I shall now be free as air, and my bark will be guided to the haven of peace by his infinite power. He did not see at first that he had given up his freedom and made of himself Sri Ramakrishna's captive. The fact that he had to relinquish all personal initiative and submit to the will of the master in everything was not evident at once. His only thought was that his teacher had taken entire charge of him. Sri Ramakrishna's training of Girish henceforth was in accordance with this new attitude. One day, Girish said about some trifling matter, "Yes, I shall do this." No, corrected the master. "You must not speak in this dogmatic way. Suppose you fail to do it? Say, 'God willing, I shall do it.'" Girish understood. Thenceforth he tried to give up all idea of personal responsibility and to become a willing instrument of the divine will. Naturally, his mind constantly dwelt on Sri Ramakrishna. This unconscious meditation, in time, chastened his turbulent spirit. I hope you liked this chapter. We need volunteers and sponsors to create content with even better quality and with more variety. If you wish to join this initiative as a volunteer or sponsor, please click the links given in description below. To help us reach more viewers, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Biography Central. Thank you for your time. It means a lot. Namaste.